Hello dear YouTube Sangha, and welcome to this video titled Toward a Coalition of Peace and Environmental Justice. I apologize that you do not see my face for this video, and so I ask that you perhaps look within a mirror or at the photograph or image of a figure that you look up to. This video is all about that. So let's get right into it. The foundation of any progressive society rests upon the collective will of its citizens to uphold justice, ensure human rights, and protect their environment. The United States of America, a nation conceived in liberty and committed to the ideals of equality and democracy, now faces an escalating crisis: the erosion of human rights, rampant environmental degradation, and the escalation of militarism undermine the very pillars of what it means to be American. To address these urgent challenges, we must organize a peace-minded and environmentally conscious coalition that synergizes the efforts of progressive groups nationwide. By examining historical movements and galvanizing the collective might of various organizations, we can forge a robust coalition with dedicated arms for litigation, grassroots canvassing, and public relations. On the lessons from labor and civil rights history, America's historical struggles for labor rights and civil liberties provide invaluable lessons for today's movements. The Pullman Strike of 1894, a pivotal moment in labor history, exemplified the power of organized labor in confronting economic inequality and state repression. Workers at the Pullman Company protested against wage cuts and high rents in company-owned housing, igniting a nationwide strike that culminated in violent clashes and federal intervention. Although the strike ultimately failed, it catalyzed the establishment of Labor Day and brought national attention to the plight of workers. This historical event underscores the importance of solidarity and collective action in challenging oppressive systems. Additionally, the redneck labor movement of the 1930s showcased the intersection of race and labor struggles in the South. Southern white and black workers united to fight for better wages, working conditions, and civil rights. This movement emphasized that socioeconomic issues could not be resolved in isolation from racial injustices. Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States, published in 2003, illustrates how grassroots coalitions could expose the inequities embedded within the American system and articulate a vision of social justice that transcended race and class. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s represents another critical chapter in American history, where coalition building was key to enacting change. Activists such as Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and organizations like the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee united people from diverse backgrounds to fight for racial equality and an end to segregation. Dr. King articulated a vision of justice that called for collective action, poignantly stating, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." The success of the civil rights movement demonstrates not only the power of unity, but also the need for a multifaceted approach that addresses various dimensions of inequality with a peaceful demeanor. On building a modern-day coalition. With lessons from the past in mind, the urgency to develop a contemporary coalition cannot be underestimated. The rise of corporate influence in politics, the climate crisis exacerbated by exploitation and neglect, and the increasing prevalence of systemic racism creates a perfect storm that threatens progress. We seek to form a coalition equipped with three vital arms to address these challenges: a legal arm, a canvass arm, and a public relations arm. The creation of a legal arm within our coalition will ensure that we have the legal expertise necessary to fight injustice at multiple levels. This arm will focus on three primary areas. 1. Protection of civil rights. With increasing attempts to curtail voting rights, restrict freedom of speech, and undermine the rights of marginalized communities, a dedicated legal team will advocate for civil rights protections. An instance of this is the ACLU's continuous efforts to challenge unconstitutional laws, such as gerrymandering and voter ID laws, which disproportionately affect disadvantaged populations. but this arm will also ensure the legal protection and representation of members of the coalition or anyone engaged in the presentation of civil rights activism in accordance with the law. Number 2, environmental law. As climate change escalates, the need for rigorous legal action becomes more pressing. This arm will aim to challenge corporations that violate environmental regulations and hold them accountable for pollution and degradation. The coalition could enlist groups like the Environmental Defense Fund, which has successfully litigated against industrial polluters and advocated for stronger environmental protections. Number 3, corporate accountability. Many corporations prioritize profit over people and the planet, leading to systemic inequalities and environmental crises. The coalition's legal arm will work towards creating judicial frameworks that allow for corporate accountability in their social and environmental ramifications. It will pursue lawsuits that expose the unethical practices of industries contributing to ecological degradation, as seen in landmark cases like Juliana versus the United States in 2015. On the canvas arm. The canvas arm of our coalition will prioritize grassroots organizing, drawing on the spirit of community engagement that characterized historical movements. The strategies employed will encompass 1. Grassroots mobilization. Coordinated efforts to engage local communities through town hall meetings, workshops, and training sessions will create a network of informed citizens who can advocate for change. The coalition can learn from the success of organizations like Indivisible, which mobilize communities by encouraging citizens to resist draconian policies and engage more meaningfully in the democratic process. 2. Youth engagement. We must actively involve younger generations in the movement through educational outreach, social media campaigns, and campaigns in schools and universities. The emergence of climate activism, spurred on by figures like Greta Thunberg, highlights the necessity of empowering youth voices in advocating for an environmentally sustainable future. 3. Diverse coalitions. Engaging diverse groups representing racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds is crucial to ensure that our movements reflect the multiplicity of the American experience. Building alliances with organizations like Black Lives Matter and immigrant rights groups is essential as they address systemic injustice intersecting with environmental concerns. On the public relations arm, a robust public relations strategy will be essential for crafting and disseminating impactful narratives that resonate with the public. The goals of this arm will be 1. Media engagement. Creating relationships with journalists and media outlets will allow us to place our issues on the national agenda. Utilizing social media platforms effectively will also enable us to tell our stories and share information widely and quickly, much like the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter movement did. 2. Countering disinformation. In an age where misinformation can rapidly spread, it is vital to counter false narratives with well-researched data and facts. We will prioritize transparency and clarity in our messaging to reinforce trust while promoting our agenda for justice and sustainability. 3. Narrative building. Crafting a positive and compelling narrative around the coalition's goals will assist in framing these issues in ways that resonate with a broader audience, drawing on the rhetoric of leaders recognized for their genuine commitment to social justice, like Bernie Sanders, who often emphasizes economic equity and systemic change, will be essential to create emotional connections with the public. On the current landscape of human rights. The importance of this coalition cannot be overstated against the backdrop of ongoing struggles for human rights. The United States now faces increasingly frequent attacks on democracy and justice, with attempts to roll back decades of progress. From the suppression of voting rights to discriminatory laws impacting LGBTQ+ individuals, it is evident that the fabric of human rights is under siege. As people take to the streets in response to violence, exploitation, and environmental degradation, it becomes clear that the fabric of society is woven from the demand for equality and justice. The legacy of the movements like the Poor People's Campaign, initiated by Dr. King in the late 1960s, demands renewed attention and action as we define the future of this nation. Dr. King declared, "Time is always right to do what is right." Mobilizing a coalition committed to peace, justice, and the environment is a moral imperative for us today. On making America truly greater. Some might argue that peace, justice, and environmental sustainability are unattainable ideals in a nation rife with division. However, this perspective fails to recognize the transformative potential of collective action. A unified coalition can harness the energy and passion of the American people, redirecting it toward creative solutions for the complex issues facing our nation. The rhetoric of making America great must be reframed. As Howard Zinn posited, you can't be neutral on a moving train. We must collectively choose to steer the train towards justice, towards a society in which every individual has the opportunity to thrive and where the environment is safeguarded for future generations. This reimagining of what it means to be great, prioritizing community, sustainability, and peace, paves the way to a more just society. Moreover, as we unite with common purpose, this coalition breaks down artificial divides. We can inclusively assert that true freedom cannot exist in a society plagued by inequality or environmental neglect. Peace cannot be achieved if we ignore the principles of economic justice. By drawing upon the wisdom of thinkers like Cornel West, who states that justice is what love looks like in public, we recognize that profound love for humanity and the earth is the bedrock upon which we build our coalition. The conclusion, a call to action. The construction of a peace-minded and environmentally conscious coalition is not only necessary but possible. In honor of previous struggles for labor rights and civil liberties, we must harness this moment to create a robust movement that advocates for human rights, environmental sustainability, and social justice. Together we can respond to the existential threats facing our nation and our planet. By forming a coalition equipped with a legal arm, a canvas arm, and a public relations arm, we will be empowered to challenge the prevailing injustices and build a future grounded in equality, sustainability, and peace. It is time to rekindle the spirit of collective action, inspired by the indomitable courage of past movements and even this nation's founding fathers. As we gather to build our coalition, let us heed the call of Martin Luther King Jr. and embrace the possibility of a new dawn for America. United, we will affirm that the only path forward is one illuminated by the values of justice, peace, and environmental stewardship. Together, we can make America greater, not merely through rhetoric, but through profound, enduring action.